Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. My name is Joe Leachko.
And I'm Ellie Spearman. We're here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
With a new episode of The Retail Lounge. And of course, we have an additional new guest here with us today.
Yeah, he is at the sunny and warm area of the U.S. right now compared to us in Pittsburgh. We got Mike Robinson. He is an executive C-suite member, retail operator, board member, startup advisor, angel investor, and his biggest thing and biggest technology has come out so far. He's head of retail solutions and founding member of the Eighth Notch. And Mike, welcome to the show. Appreciate you having you on.
Great. Happy to be here, and Happy New Year to you as well. And it's not quite as warm as you think in San Francisco, but it's probably a little warmer than Pittsburgh.
Yeah, currently it is 24, 25 outside, so it's brisk.
All right. You win.
And we've got snow, so.
You definitely win.
Yeah. But yeah, Mike, thanks for coming on with us. And we love to hear just a bit about your background and love to hear about the technology of the Eighth Notch, because the more we found out and read up on you and understood the business itself, it affects everyone. It affects retail and even all the way down to consumers and them ordering online. So it'd be great to kind of hear you out.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit about my background, and I appreciate the kind intro that you had. I think a LinkedIn profile is always a place where you put a lot of things, and hopefully you have done those things, and in many cases I have. But I've had a non-linear type of career. I didn't start out to be a startup founder, right? I started out in finance and accounting and went into consulting, and consulting led me into technology. Technology led me to retail. And for the better part of the last 25 years, I've been a retailer. But it's been on the digital side of the business and building, e-commerce sites and e-commerce experiences and figuring out how to, cross the lease line into the store and do omni-channel and do mobile and everything that came along with that. And one of the pieces that I didn't really pay a lot of attention to was what happened after somebody hit submit order and checkout, and the fulfillment side of that. And that's really been the journey that I've been focused on in the Eighth Notch with Jamie Sapp, who is the founder, and a very good friend of mine. And he came to me with this idea and said, I've got this idea that, and it really started with he and I walking around in his suburban neighborhood here in the Bay Area, and we're watching all these delivery trucks drive around. And he looked at me and he said, does that happen in your neighborhood? Because I'm in the city, as I mentioned. I said, yeah, it happens all the time. I'm on a quiet street, but whether it's FedEx or UPS or USPS or Amazon or OnTrack, all the trucks are coming up and down every single day. And he goes, it doesn't feel sustainable. And by sustainable at that point, he meant from a business operation standpoint, it's just there's too many trucks happening and not enough coordination or synchronization going on. But then I said, but it probably doesn't make sense from a sustainability standpoint as we think about carbon creation as well.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to build a business around this, right? And he said, do you think we could build something around where we figure out how to take the final mile, break it down differently, and figure out how we can synchronize? And this is really the premise that we live by, which is we want to minimize the number of times that a delivery truck comes to your house, but still drops off everything that you've ordered. But instead of coming 5 times a week, it's going to come 3 days a week. And by doing that, and taking trucks off the road, and that we found that there was money to be saved and carbon to be saved, and that became kind of the basis for how we started the Eighth Notch.
Yeah, right. And one thing that's really intriguing as well regarding the Eighth Notch, we're talking about balancing speed and sustainability hand in hand, right? Especially with e-commerce companies. I was wondering if you could dive in a little bit more about how these companies are meeting the fast demand for delivery, of course, also acknowledging environmental impact, carbon offset, green packing, etc. What's the smarter logic? How are we talking about this in your idea here with your new technology?
Yeah, I think to this point in the e-commerce fulfillment side, when sustainability has come into it, is that they've left speed alone, right? In terms of we'll just still get it to you as quickly as we possibly can because that's the way that you've been conditioned by the number one competitor, Amazon. And I'll come back to Amazon in a second because I think they're changing their ways. So we'll look at figuring out, well, are you willing to buy offsets? Are you willing to allow us to, buy offsets on your behalf? Are you willing to, have us focus on the materials that we use from a corrugated perspective? Are you willing to allow us to use carriers that use EVs instead? But they never really focused on the primary problem, which was it being done in a very uncoordinated manner, and it was just like all the e-tailers out there were saying it's your problem now. And package
Yeah.
carrier, the UPSs, the FedExes, the USPS of the world, find a way to get it there faster, and by the way, make it cheaper as well. And at some point that flywheel breaks, and that componentry breaks.
Right.
And so what we did is we said, can we challenge the notion of time? Can we challenge the notion of speed? And there's always going to be a component of things that you need very, very quickly, right? Because you've got a trip, or it's a gift, or it's a perishable, or something like that. But those things that probably you could wait a little bit longer. The question became said, if I can create value out of the back end of that time frame, and I can save you money, and I can save you carbon by doing that, are you willing to allow me to tell you how to operate your business a little bit differently? And the only difference we're saying is we'll tell you when to ship it, because we know when everything else is in motion going to your address, that we can connect it to something that's already in flight. And based on the time in transit, which is very, very predictable, shipping it tomorrow allows it to be able to connect with something, so they will both be delivered next Wednesday, instead of one package being delivered on Tuesday and one being delivered on Wednesday. So that really became the premise. And I will tell you, right, this notion of speed has been one of the biggest uphill battles that we've had with many of the companies that we've been working with. But they're slowly understanding it because of the financial value and also the carbon savings as well.
Yeah, I'm curious because even when it comes down to the consumer themselves, I'm curious on like what products would sell not as fast anymore, because you used to get them, if you did it before 7 a.m., you could get it by the end of the day, versus this new way of going is that you may not get it same day anymore. I wonder how they'd have to change the way they sell or, manage products online.
The way that we're focused on it right now is we're in the post-checkout world, right? So the timeline has already been defined.
Got it.
With consumer, 3 to 5 days, 3 to 7 days, 3 to 8 days, right? And what we're saying is use the back end part of that a little bit more strategic, because you've already put it in the customer's mind that it's going to take a period of time.
Yeah.
Most retailers are rushing to say, I want to use the front end at that time because there's a perception of surprise and delight. I know I get surprised by things showing up and I didn't expect them, right? And I live in an urbanly dense area, and porch piracy is a bit of an issue, and that becomes a problem as much as anything else. And then I've got to go through the whole customer service problem. But what we offer is, by telling you when to ship, we can tell you when it's going to deliver, and that's something that can be communicated to the customer. And when we tell you to ship it on the date that we are saying is, that our model that we put into place with the carrier in a gain share model is you take advantage of what happens by that delivery truck not stopping out front, right? That there's several dollar savings associated with it each time a delivery stop doesn't happen, and that 800 grams of CO2 that I often talk about as well that isn't created. And when you get that dual impact, people go, maybe I can be a little bit, and this notion of slower, I think, is a hard one for people to get through. But the way that I like to think about it, it's more synchronized and more coordinated. Now, I will tell you, and I said I wanted to come back to Amazon here in a second, right? Amazon very, very, very smartly, right, very intelligently. I don't think smartly is a real word.
We'll use it.
Well, some people use it.
Yeah.
But that they conditioned the consumer to believing that free and fast was the most important thing, right? And that it was, through, the greatest loyalty program ever created besides, the airlines and maybe, a couple of other things, that they said that, well, you're going to have to pay for it, but you get it in an unlimited fashion. Now, if you check, and if you pay attention to this, and I ask all of the listeners out there, the next time they check out on Amazon, pay attention to the fact that it's no longer, it's going to get there in 1 day, it's going to get there in 2 days. It's going to get there when they tell you it will get there. But they're also going to offer it and say, if you're willing to wait a little bit longer, right, that there's a more sustainable way of delivering it to you, because we're going to deliver it with something else. Now, it may be something directly to you, or it may be something to your neighbor or somewhere else in the neighborhood. It's an operational change that they're making to be able to say, we can run more efficiently, but it also is better for the planet, because I'm not having 2 trucks come by, I'm only having 1 truck come by. And I think as Amazon conditions all of us to think that way, that the rest of the retailers have to lean in as well to recognize that it's already become the norm, right? And I don't want them to get left behind, right? Like I feel like many of the retailers got left behind the first time as they were chasing speed. I don't want them to get left behind as they think about sustainability.
Especially if there's like a cost incentive on the back end to wait those extra couple of days. That's maybe it's a community thing, like wait for everyone else that's been ordering. I think that would catch on because everyone's all about saving.
Well, and with many of the retailers that we're working with, it is significantly beneficial to them from a financial standpoint, right? Yeah, I mean, free shipping is never free to anyone.
No.
Like, somebody has to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can figure out how to change the economics of free shipping and be able to get some amount of, whether it's you're not getting a cost increase in the future, or you're getting a rebate, or you're getting some amount of preferential treatment by the carrier, there is financial value that can be created. And I keep coming back to this 800 grams of CO2 because you get it for free, right? You didn't have to, you don't have to change the fuel. You don't have to have an EV vehicle, right? You don't have to change the packaging. You don't have to change the materials. But 800 grams of CO2 is never created because we're being more efficient, right? We're taking waste out of the system. And I think that is such an interesting component that I think, as people think about sustainability, there's so much waste that we have, and we think about it from a recycling standpoint.
Right.
We just don't even think about it anymore. We think that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. This needs to become the right thing to do from a delivery perspective.
Is the 800 grams measured through that last mile that you explained, or is that okay?
Yeah, it's a very specific measurement that the package carrier that we have a relationship with, that, again, I can't mention who it is, but you flip a coin and you'd be right half the time and wrong half the time. They're either number 1 or number 2 in every market in the U.S. They did the measurement, right? That said, every time that truck doesn't need to stop, the driver get out, the driver get back in, start it up, move it forward to the next place, stop again. Mm-hmm. It's several dollars of savings from an operational perspective, and that 800 grams of CO2, right? And that's a hard measure that they're willing to share with the retailer by changing the behavior every time that you can reduce that stop because you changed when it shipped up front. Take advantage of that metric, and you can report on it. That, to me, I think is kind of the one piece that we've worked with a number of retailers on, that are trying to figure out the best way of being able to communicate that to their customers. Mm-hmm. But they know they have this as kind of the gift with purchase that you get by taking advantage of this program.
So the technology in general, is this an algorithm based that's maybe AI generated or anything like that, or are you?
Yeah. I mean, everything's AI. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So our flavor of it. I mean, basically, we are a platform that sits in the middle, and we take information from the carrier around everything that they have currently in motion over the next 8 days that is being delivered to every address in the U.S. And we have the order information coming in from the retailer in terms of the stuff that's about to start its journey. And there's two variants on this. On the retailer side, that we can connect that retailer's package with another retailer's package that's already in motion, so both of them are delivered at the same time, or this retailer, and we often order multiple things that don't come from the same location because it's almost impossible for a big retailer to predict where its inventory should be 100% of the time. And so the split shipment scenario where you get multiple items from the same company in multiple boxes, what we're doing is, okay, those multiple items in multiple boxes all come on one day. I tell a story of I left Macy's and I wanted to buy some white T-shirts before I left, and I think about the 5 white T-shirts, and I'm thinking 5 white T-shirts, which are a basic, all show up to me in one box on the same day. They came to me from 4 different locations and 4 different boxes over 3 days, right? And if I was not who I was, I would have been calling customer service going, where's the rest of my stuff? It was because where they were positioned around the country, they had different times and trends, but they all started their journey on the same day. And what we would do is say, this one would start today, this one will start tomorrow, and this one will start the next day. They'll all come together and be delivered at the same time. So that's the scenario when it's split shipment. The other one is, and the one that, I think that I was always surprised by, because there was another company that did this program before we did, that every time I got this company's package, I would get another retailer's package as well, and they're already starting to piggyback on top of it. So I mean, look, this is something that some companies have started to take advantage of.
Yeah.
More are, but you ask about the algorithm. We sit in the middle. We take information from both sides. We find the best opportunities to be able to bring them together, either through hard math or through some level of predictive algorithm as well, right? And that algorithm is something that we're training on a consistent basis to be able to find the highest value, the highest number of times that change your shipping date that you will get value on the back end.
It's like a digital cross, or like a I guess the traffic light type situation where you're just making sure people can cross safely and get there efficiently.
Exactly. Sure. You're the guys on the street with the stop signs directing traffic.
And it's simple effect like that.
Yeah.
I would love to be that guy, and I'd love to direct all the traffic, right? Because if I could direct all the traffic, everything would be organized and coordinated better.
Right. So I'm curious then, actually, now that we're discussing traffic and cars, I wanted to lean this in a little bit more into the fundamental of the back end of what this story looks like, right? After we've walked through the customer journey, things have gone through transit, you're having that conversation post-checkout. Now we're talking about actual delivery. Has your organization, through the concept of this company and what you guys are doing, your incentive here, thought about maybe having that discussion of like electric vehicles, what that transport actually looks like, how we're utilizing, what kind of packaging is carrying these products to the customers, et cetera. I was curious if you could touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are agnostic to that, but we're absolutely added to it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's exactly the right thing. And frankly, that's kind of the, that's kind of the education that I hope we all go through as consumers, right? And we start voting with our wallets in terms of the companies that do lean in on this. I think the difference, though, is that, and this is where I'm hoping this all goes, right, is that instead of it costing more to do something right, you actually save money by doing something right, right? In the case that we're talking about, it's about saving money.
Yeah.
Upgrading a fleet to EVs, changing to alternative packaging. I've got a hoodie that's made out of bamboo, right? Right. It's a renewable fiber. I think as we get better and better and better at this, people will start to recognize I can actually operate my business more efficiently and more effectively by doing this, instead of it's costing me more to do something that feels right. And I think that's when all of the entrepreneurial spirit will come into play in terms of how do I make my business better, and how do I use sustainability at the core of that to be able to drive it even further. So again, we love when people want to do that. We don't need it in order to do what we do.
It's funny because usually the word sustainability usually comes with a dollar amount to that, and it's usually expensive. Like a lot of EV cars are somewhat expensive to buy. Sustainable clothing comes with a dollar amount because the process takes longer. So it's interesting to hear from your end that it's actually beneficial this time, and there's no strings attached, to actually go toward the better.
Not this time, and I think if nothing else, it could become an investment fund in terms of how do you go after the other components of it, right? I mean, I think that's the piece where I don't want sustainability. I mean, look, we have politicized climate change, right? And with that, the notion of operating in a sustainable manner. But many of the studies out there, and there was a study done by Bain recently that said that 70% of consumers are really, really looking for those companies that think differently and are starting to take sustainability into perspective in terms of how not only the products they have, but how they operate, right? And it's moving away from just buying products that are sustainable, but living sustainably, right? Again, I come back to the recycling in the blue bin, right? We've just all been conditioned to believe put the bottles in the blue bin and magic happens, right?
Right.
And we have to, and I think we need to see other components of our life move in that direction, because, consuming at the level that we're at probably is not going to work, right? Consuming differently,
Oh, of course.
in different ways and in a much more efficient pattern is going to give us a better chance.
I'm interested too, like on the reverse side. So, say when it comes to returning things, are you on that as well, where they're getting notifications? Because you're getting it from the actual distributor, but the opposite back. When I'm trying to get something back to USPS.
I love that you brought that up, and I'll actually give a shout out to a company that we were talking to yesterday. There's a company by the name of Trashie, right? Trashie. They are, you put stuff in a bag and send it to them, and they will recycle it for you. Well, whether it's fabric, whether it's tech products, et cetera. But it's a better way and then they give you, points in their rewards program that you can spend at other sustainable brands. But what they do is they require you to go to a location to drop it off. And what we were talking about with them was, could we partner with the carrier that we partner with, that every time the carrier comes to drop something off, he picks up as well? Because the time frame doesn't matter, right? I mean, they don't, that they said, I've actually ordered a few of their bags, and they're like, well, we don't care when you get it to us, just get it to us, right? So if it happened to be the next time that you've got a driver show up and he drops off something and he picks something up, that would help us, right? And it would definitely help you, because it's a convenience issue for me. I don't need to go to a location to do this. I think the whole returns and the circular component of this is just barely starting to scratch the surface of it, but it makes perfect sense, right? Even if you're doing an e-commerce type of return, right? The fact that you've got to box it up and take it to a location, and if you could do it, if you could just give it back to the driver as they are dropping something else off, convenience goes up, operational efficiency goes up, and it just makes perfect sense.
Oh my gosh, if that could be a thing.
No, seriously. Well, I was just thinking about even returns through like Amazon or virtually anything. Yeah. Returning at a store even. I mean, that in terms of like e-commerce, right? And how deliveries are happening when you're in the actual retail space in a store, and then the virtual side of all of that, right? Through delivery, through sales, whatever else. It's such an interesting conversation.
And Amazon has done a great job of making it very frictionless, because you can
a
bunch of stores you can go into. You can go into the Whole Foods of the world. You don't even need to have any packaging. You just give it back. But I'm sensing they're right on the verge of, hey, you got something to return? We're dropping something off tomorrow. Have that package. We're ready to go at 3 o'clock, and we'll give you a notification that your driver will be there. So I sense that is coming. And trust me, when they do it, the rest of the world needs to take notice.
Yeah, the one thing that I think is a barrier sometimes is the return labels that you get. You've got to print them out and put them back on the box. Like, where are they going to simplify that, where the code that brought the box in, that code changes, and then you're able to rescan that back, or something to that version?
I love that you're riffing on this. Okay. That's exactly the type of thing that needs, and this is the type of feedback that all of us as consumers need to give back to people.
Yeah.
Right? It's saying, look, you've made it real easy for me to buy. You're making it harder for me to return, even though you say returns are frictionless, right? You just identified a major piece of friction, right? I mean, I'm a dinosaur. I still have a printer, right? And so I print out labels. Right?
Yeah.
But I have friends that'll call me up and say, I need to print a label. Can I come over and get it? Right? Because they don't. Now, many companies have started to figure out a way that you don't need to do this. You just need to bring it back, or you've got an email with a QR code that you can show on your phone. There's a whole bunch of things, but they're all points of friction that we haven't really figured out. And frankly, every single one of them is wasteful, right? Anytime that we have to get into a car and go someplace to drop something off, that's a journey that shouldn't have to happen if there's already a truck coming here to me, right?
Right.
And if I could show him a QR code and he was able to scan it and he accepts it at that point and throws it in a bin, and then they process it. There's a whole host of things that I think that when we break through this notion of, that when we break through speed and location and some of the other things, and the printing of the label, And to your point, could a label be dual purpose, right?
Yeah.
Right? It gets to me and it goes back out because of the intelligence in the label. Sure, why not?
Yeah, because I think a lot of solutions and ways people figured this out is it's a stepping stone to another technology that they're creating for it. Like, so this is the idea we talk about now has to take 4 steps before it actually gets to that moment. So I'm curious too, like where the eighth notch is now, where are your stepping stones to like the next thing, or are you waiting for the larger companies to start making those decisions, or are you kind of influencing them a little bit the way you're operating?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has been really exciting for us is there's no limit to what you can do with thinking about, and it's called a delivery density, right? How do I get things delivered more often in the same journey to the same location? Mm-hmm. But what if you start thinking about it in concentric circles, right? So I live here in the city, and I know that when the driver stops, he services 3 houses. Right, he services the one to the left, he services mine, and the one to the right. That's a proximity, right? Could we do something where something's being delivered to my neighbor at the same time that's being delivered to me, and that would remove the stop? You think about an apartment building, and you've got the verticality associated with multi-units, right? Some of them with hundreds of units, right? It's the same location. You can take it to neighborhood, you can take it to zip code, right? And what it ends up doing is it starts affecting the operation of the entire network, right? Where there may be, it says Tuesdays and Thursdays are a no drive zone in San Francisco, right? We will not do deliveries on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but we'll do it Mondays and Wednesdays, right? And so Tuesdays and Thursdays, you've got trucks off the road at that point. That to me is where I think this becomes really interesting. The very, very first podcast I did with a gentleman in Spain, and he started thinking, he was going on, and he said, could this be the beginning of smart cities, right? Where everything is organized, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see if we as humans allow ourselves to be organized that well, right? But it was an interesting thing to watch him, and that's all I'm asking. Is I want people to take this idea and these ideas and riff on them, right? And the ideas that you guys were coming up on the multi-use, label. Why not, right? Well, let's all riff on this and see what we can do, because what's working now is not efficient. Right?
No.
It's efficient at getting stuff to us, right? But it's not coordinated in any way or shape or form for everything that we're trying to get. Individual pieces, yes, but multiple pieces, no.
Well, it's like the thing of instant gratification. Everyone wants to feel that they've bought that thing, and then it better show up tomorrow. I'm going to be mad.
Right.
And then the question becomes, do you really need it tomorrow?
Right.
Right. I mean, I think all of us have this wall of boxes coming at us, right? Mm-hmm. And do we ever truly know what's happening today or tomorrow? And if we needed it, then we probably expedited it in some way, shape, or form, right? But I've got a wall of boxes coming at me that, I just wait and sometimes I remember that I ordered it, and every once in a while I don't remember I ordered something and it shows up. So I think if I knew that everything was coming on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I could plan my life a little differently, right?
Yeah.
If I knew that nothing was coming on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, definitely. That's such an interesting point to touch in as well. Just the concept of delivery services in people's day-to-day lifestyles, and how that also like influences the side of the consumer story, right? And what that looks like. It's a great incentive. Also, the fact that you're perceptualizing this additional conversation outside of just, the financial benefit for the retailer, for the consumer, for the middleman, whatever. It's just like, how can we start to have that conversation of sustainability and express that further?
It's a really great question, and it's interesting because I spent a lot of time reading other people's surveys on these things, and,
right.
and there was a logistics company out there by the name of Sifted that did this survey of consumers about a year ago, and it basically said, that 72% of those consumers that were asked that got 5 or more packages really wanted sustainable practices in terms of delivery, right? That they thought it was important to them. 87% of them were willing to wait longer if they knew that it was going to be a sustainable delivery. And and then you add the convenience part of it. It kind of jumped up to 93%. We're saying if I know it's going to come on a very specific date. So if I know it's sustainable and it's coming on a specific date, I'll wait longer,
Yeah.
right? Because I get value, right? Right. I feel better about my choice.
It's
right?
guilt-free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's very much guilt-free.
Yeah.
I feel better about my choice, and I also know that I probably should be home at that point to be able to accept it. Those are. I think the changing consumer sentiment is going to cause companies to operate differently. It's been a premise that I've had for a while, and I think we're starting to see it.
I would say also too to kind of riff on the idea of the porch piracy that you said that, you know, some cities have problems with and everything. You were able to dictate when you're home that those packages arrive versus, you know, I had 4 or 5 packages yesterday that sat for 10 hours outside that, you know, I may not have even known that they have been taken if I didn't get the, you know, delivery notification. So that would play a huge role in just safety in general.
I'm guessing you were really uncomfortable for those 10 hours.
No, I will say that my wife bought like a case of wine, and it says all over the box that it's wine, and like there's no hiding that.
It's
And
Pittsburgh too. Yeah.
yeah, so you don't know. Like, I mean, my street is very quiet, like yours, and you know, but it's very broad. It just says wine across the whole darn thing, and so you wonder sometimes, like, oh crap, you know, like that's sitting out there forever, especially when it's super cold out too, and it's going to freeze up those bottles. But at the same time, somebody might show up and just say, "Oh, that looks cool," you know.
Exactly. Or even just the conversation, right, of like delivery services that require a signature or like face on, you need to be there to receive this package or else we're not going to leave it. I just had a buddy of mine having a long conversation with customer service about the delivery of his new flat screen TV, and he couldn't get it with his work schedule and being at home at the wrong times when the delivery guys were showing up. So it's a lot of back and forth lifestyle conversation.
I think this notion of convenience is a real issue.
Yeah.
Right? It's a real item, and if you can marry it with what we're doing because of the predictable nature of it, I like it. Right? I mean, again, I will come back to my premise. I would love that my street becomes a non-delivery street 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids on this street. Right?
Yeah.
And it would be great to, and I'm near the park, and there's a whole bunch of things where it would just be nice to not have traffic for that period of time, because right now this delivery truck's going, you know, every single day in both directions. But also the convenience side of, you know, not having it stolen, but also having something valuable delivered and you're not there to accept it, right? Or you need to be here to accept it because it is valuable and I can be predictive on this. That to me is where this value comes in. And I struggle with it myself because I live alone, and sometimes I'm available and sometimes I'm not, right?
Right.
And I think if we can figure out how to break the back on that, then it just changes the speed conversation, because then it becomes about convenience, and then you add the sustainability component to it. Maybe you add the guilt-free component to it as well.
Do you think the relationship will change between retailers and the logistics side of things when it comes to how the retailers are going to operate to ship things? And, you know, because to me, it's kind of like, it reminds me of the garbage schedule. Like the garbage truck comes once a week to pick up your stuff, and it goes. But then on the retail side, you know, they don't have to keep shoveling things out every single day because there's an order. They just wait these certain amount of days and then everything goes out. So actually their life might get more efficient as well.
You know, that's my ultimate dream, right? Is that we're scheduling everything,
Yeah.
right? If we're able to schedule everything, then we'll be able to take out a lot of that friction and inefficiencies there. It's a slow burn. It's a slow burn because of the conditioning that fast is the most important thing. But when people, and I can tell you, when the light bulb goes off in people's heads, it then becomes, what else might I do with this, right? It becomes, I'll always provide premium services for those things you need fast, but you're going to pay for it. But maybe it's my way of reinventing free shipping, right? Right now, free is I get it free, and I hope you get it to me as fast as possible, versus free, I'm going to do it in a sustainable manner, and I'm going to get it there on a predictable date.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes a very different conversation, and I think that changes customer service. That changes a lot of things. So I think, you know, I still think as retailers wake up to what Amazon is doing, they're going to recognize that they need to change their own behavior so they don't get left behind again.
Right. Oh, wow. Yeah. Well said. Well, Mike, again, thank you so much for being here with us today and joining our podcast, sharing all of your insights on this amazing new technology that you're kicking off. And I have nothing but good hopes. I hope that I can end up having the Eighth Notch in my neighborhood very, very soon. It makes things, I especially as a consumer appreciate the lack of guilt. That's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But we really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.